Hi everybody, it's Matrixity from Matrixity Muses. Welcome to my Matrix. Today we're going to talk about spooky Charleston. Charleston is known for many firsts, like best cities and best places to visit and all those types of things. But did you know that we are also the home to the first female serial killer in the United States? Yes, we are. We're known for that too. Her name is Lavinia Fisher. Have you heard of her before? Lavinia Fisher? Well, my birthday was yesterday, and one of the things that my daughter gave me as a gift was a ghost tour to the most haunted place in Charleston, which is the Charleston City Jail. And that is where Lavinia Fisher spent her last days. And you know what? It said that she's never left that jail. And from what I hear, she's still in that jail. She's never left that jail. Well, let me tell you about her story. Lavinia was a very beautiful woman. She was so beautiful that everybody, all the men, were mesmerized by her. Her hair, her skin like porcelain. She was just gorgeous. And she married a man named John. So she, Lavinia and John Fisher, ran a hotel 6 miles outside of Charleston. And it was called the 6 Mile Wayfarer Hotel. And it was called that because it was 6 miles out of Charleston. It was the last stop on the way before travelers who'd been traveling a long distance to get here would stop, kind of regroup there before going on to the city of Charleston. So they ran this hotel, and this, as far as the date, this was back in the 1800s. They ran this hotel for many years, and suddenly men began to disappear. And their families became very curious because it seems like after a while it was determined that the last place that all these men stopped was at the 6 Mile Wayfarer Hotel run by Lavinia and her husband. So it got so bad that an investigation was launched. The police came out to search a hotel. They didn't find anything, but still, men still disappeared. One day, a man named John People stopped there, and he actually was there undoing. He stopped there, and he was totally mesmerized by Lavinia and her beauty. They too sat in the parlor and talked for the longest time. She began to question him about his life, his wife, why he was in Charleston, did he have a family, was he going to buy anything expensive while he was here, all those types of things. And he'd given up a lot of information to her, a lot of personal information, and suddenly he began to feel uncomfortable about why he'd given so much information to her. Her husband was also in the room after a while and began to look at John Peoples very strangely, but Lavinia came back in and kind of poo-pooed everything away, and he felt fine again. So they talked some more. So then Lavinia excused herself from the room and said, "I'll be right back." So she was gone for a little while, and when she came back in, she said, "Good news! A room is opened up here, and you are able to spend the night." She also had a cup of tea. Well, he took the tea because he was polite, but he didn't like tea. John didn't like tea. So he pretended to sip a little, but when Lavinia left the room, he poured the tea out into a potted plant. So that she would know that he did not drink it. So then a little bit later, she came back in with her husband again, and she asked, "How'd you like the tea?" And he said it was great. And the husband looked, at him and smiled with a kind of wicked smile on his face, because they knew they'd put something in that tea, probably something to make him drowsy, very sleepy. So then he retired to the room, but he had a bad feeling. John Peoples had a really bad feeling about the two of them. So they took him to the room. He was in for the night, but instead of going on the bed, he decided, "I'm going to sit in the chair." So he sat in a chair, a straight chair, by the door, kind of like blocking the door so nobody could get in there, because he was worried that he might become the victim of a robbery overnight. So he was sat in that chair most of the night, and he was dozing off. Then all of a sudden he hears this horrible noise like clang, clang, clang. And he opened his eyes and he looked. And where the bed was supposed to be, there was now an open cavern. The bed had dropped down into the floor. And he got up and looked down there. And what he saw horrified him. Not only did he see the bed, but he saw bones of other people lying around. he knew that he was in a wrong place. So he very quickly opened the window, jumped out of the window, ran to the stables, got his horse, and fled all the way to Charleston. He told the authorities. So the authorities came back the next day and searched that house from top to bottom. And they found hidden caverns and tunnels. And they found the open area where the bed dropped down. And in that area, they found hundreds of bones of people, who obviously men who they dispatched, Lavinia and her husband had killed. In addition, in some of the hidden passages, they found possessions that belonged to missing men whose family had reported them missing probably a couple of years before. They found watches, they found books, they found glasses, some clothing, all sorts of things. So Lavinia and her husband were finally arrested, and they were taken to the Charleston City Jail to spend the rest of their days. They had a jury trial, and they were found guilty of robbery and murder. And so they were sentenced to death, to be hung. So then, they passed some time in the jail. It was a horrible place there. That jail was really a place for human suffering. It is an historical marker in our city, but it's not a nice place. And bad things happen in that jail when you go there to visit. Spooky things happen in that jail. So Lavinia never left that jail, just so you know. I'm saying that again. So Lavinia and her husband, as I said, they were found guilty, and they were sentenced to die. And back then, they had the gallows. So one of the first things they did was to have, I guess, a priest or a pastor come and speak with them just before they were going to be hung. I think the husband did speak with the pastor, and he was hung. But Lavinia wanted nothing to do with him. So it then became her turn to be hung. And what she decided was that she was going to be hung in her wedding dress because she thought that her beauty would save her. She thought at the last second somebody from the crowd was going to yell out and say, "I'll marry her," and save her life. Because if someone did that, she would be saved. And at that time, the gallows were public hanging. So the city came and watched people get hung. So it was an event. You could come and watch. You could come peer over the walls of the jail. There were big houses around the jail at that time. You could watch from your windows. So there were lots of people out there watching Lavinia die that day. So she realized, after being in the gallows and after being all strung up with the noose, that nobody was going to come forward and save her. Her beautiful looks aren't going to work that day. So she told the crowd, she yelled out to anyone there, "If anyone has something to say to the devil, tell me now, because I'm going to be dining with the devil tonight." Everybody was appalled. And with that, the jailer pulled the rope and she was hung. And that was the end of Lavinia Fisher as far as death that day. Well, as it turned out, her spirit was such a wicked spirit that it never left the jail. She's still there. And the guide, when we took our tour yesterday, not yesterday, but the day before yesterday, told us this horrible story about Lavinia and that she's still there. They see her sometimes. They'll see like ghostly figures, a woman floating through the jail sometimes. Sometimes she will touch you. Now, when I was in the jail, I did feel, we were in Lavinia's room when he was telling us the story, and I felt something brush by me twice. I looked around because I thought it was my daughter standing very close to me, and it was not her. She was several feet away. So I thought, oh, that's odd. Didn't think anything of it. But when it happened the second time, and I looked around on each side of me, there was nobody there, I thought, that's Lavinia. The other thing, too, that happens to people in Lavinia's room is they get scratched. Usually that seems to happen with children and some adults, but you get this real kind of feeling of bad feeling of ambulance coming over you, and you'll feel scratches. So when you leave the jail, you'll have this automatically two big long scratches on your shoulders, scratches on your back, scratches on your legs. So that lets you know that Lavinia is scratching you when you leave and marking you. The other thing sometimes they can actually hear is her laughter. So we didn't hear anything when we were there, but when we were in Lavinia's room, my daughter said that she heard the jailer. We were told the story of the jailer who died in the jail, and he never left. And he will sometimes tell people to get out. And my daughter said that she felt someone very quietly in her ear whisper, get out. She was terrified. Oh my gosh. So that was the scariest thing. Now, before we went to that jail, I had prayed a prayer of protection over us, over me, over her, over that jail, and all the people on our tour, that Lavinia and whoever bad spirits that might be in that jail would not bother us. We'd be protected from them. And when we left, nobody would be following us home either. So my daughter told me that she was, and she wore shorts that day, that she was thinking to herself, oh, I got shorts. I got plenty of skin for Lavinia to scratch me, or, you know, something to happen, but nothing did, thank goodness. But it is a creepy place. And when you take that tour, just know you're going to be in the pitch black. We went at night. Of course, my daughter chose the night tour, so it would be really spooky. We went at night. So we literally went in the pitch black. Our guide had the one flashlight. A couple of people turned on their cell phones to have a little bit of light, but for the most part, we were in the pitch black. And some of the tour, he told us he wanted no light. So we'd have to turn off all phones so that there would not be any cell phone lights. So he would tell a story in the pitch dark. So it was really, really creepy in there. It was a great, great tour. I recommend it. And the reason why I wanted to go was because I hear that the city jail is going to be made into office space, which is terrible because it has such a history. It seems like it should be on the historical marker here in Charleston, but it isn't apparently as far as being preserved. So I think it's going to be rented out. It could be a time very soon where you will not be able to tour all the floors like we did. We toured all 3 floors. Spookiest place you'd ever want to be. Pitch black in the dark at nighttime. But it is so worth it. So if you have the chance to go before it becomes an office space or an office building, go. Because some of that building is going to be blocked off and you will not get the full tour like we did. And apparently there is still a tour going on after the midnight tour where you actually go in, and that is the paranormal tour they have, where they do actually try to summon up the spirits, and they have all of the ghost busting equipment and EMTs and all those things that they use to record sound and ghosts and all of those things. So that is there too. So I don't think I'll do that tour because I certainly do not want to try to go in there and summon up a spirit. I want Lavinia to stay in that jail and be there by herself as much as possible until it becomes an office space. But they say that even though it will be an office space, that ground is still a haunted ground. So even though it's an office space, it might become that eventually. That still might be a really spooky haunted place and things happen there. So Lavinia, thank you for a great tour. It was Bulldog Tours. Thank you for a great tour of Bulldog Tours. It was fantastic. I highly recommend it to anyone. So if you have a chance to go and take that jail tour, go. Because it's going to be changed soon. It's going to become an office soon, and you will miss out on one of the greatest experiences you can have here in Charleston, learning all about Charleston's first female serial killer. All right, y'all. Have a great day. Talk to you soon. See you later, alligator. Bye.